Dr. Sarah Chen had seen many strange things during her 15 years running the New Angeles Interspecies Animal Shelter, but nothing quite like the creature cowering in the corner of Containment Unit 7. The locals called it a void cat, though it bore only passing resemblance to Earth's felines. Its fur was a deep midnight blue that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, and 6 legs ended in what looked like small hands rather than paws. Most unsettling were its eyes, large golden orbs that tracked movement with an intelligence that made Sarah's skin crawl. The creature had been brought in 3 months ago by a freighter crew who claimed it had stowed away during their cargo run from the Kepler colonies. Since then, it had been adopted and returned 17 times. The reasons were always the same: unexplained electrical failures, strange nightmares, and an overwhelming sense of dread that seemed to follow the animal wherever it went. "Nobody wants the thing, Doc," said Marcus, the shelter's lead technician, as he checked the morning feeding logs. "The Hendersons brought it back yesterday. Said their daughter started speaking in some alien language after just 2 days with it." Sarah watched the creature through the reinforced glass. It sat motionless, those golden eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her feel exposed. Other animals in the shelter, both Earthborn and alien, gave its containment unit a wide berth. Even the usually fearless Arctilian crystal birds fell silent when wheeled past its cage. "What does xenobiology say about its species?" Sarah asked, pulling up the creature's file on her tablet. Marcus shrugged. "That's the weird part. According to the database, there's no record of anything like it in known space. The freighter crew said they picked it up near some uncharted system, but their navigation logs were corrupted. Could be from anywhere." The morning rush of potential adopters began filtering through the shelter's main corridor. Sarah watched families pause at various enclosures, children pressing faces against glass while parents read information placards. Without fail, they all hurried past Unit 7 once they spotted its occupant. "Dr. Chen?" A young woman approached the desk. She was perhaps 30, with kind eyes and prematurely gray hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. "I'm looking to adopt. I live alone and have experience with difficult animals." "I'm Elena Rodriguez," the woman continued. "I run a small veterinary practice specializing in exotic species. I've been looking for a companion for quite some time." Sarah's heart sank. Elena seemed genuinely caring, and Sarah had developed a protective instinct toward potential adopters after watching so many return traumatized. "We have some wonderful animals available. Perhaps you'd like to see our Centaurian rabbit analogs? They're very gentle and great for first-time interspecies pet owners." But Elena wasn't listening. Her gaze had drifted to Unit 7, where the void cat sat watching their conversation with those unsettling golden eyes. "What about that one?" "Oh, that's not—" Sarah began, then stopped herself. The creature had been in the shelter for months. If it had to be euthanized due to lack of adoption, Sarah wasn't sure she could live with herself. Every creature deserved a chance, even the ones that made people's hair stand on end. "That animal requires special care," Sarah said carefully. "It's been returned multiple times. Previous families reported some unusual experiences." Elena approached Unit 7, seemingly unbothered by the oppressive silence that seemed to emanate from within. The void cat rose to its 6 feet, moving with fluid grace to press against the glass. For the first time since arriving at the shelter, it made a sound, a low melodic hum that vibrated through the floor. "He's beautiful," Elena whispered. "What kind of unusual experiences?" Sarah consulted her tablet. "Electrical disturbances, primarily. Electronics failing, lights flickering. Some families reported strange dreams. The Hendersons claimed their daughter began speaking in an unknown language, though child services found no evidence of trauma." "Has anyone actually tried to understand what he needs?" Elena asked, her voice taking on the professional tone Sarah recognized from fellow veterinarians. Sometimes behavioral issues stem from environmental stress or unmet biological requirements. The xenobiology department ran extensive tests. Marcus interjected, joining them at the unit. Physically, he's healthy. Mentally, he shrugged. Who knows what goes on in an alien mind? Elena knelt before the glass. The void cat mimicked her position, placing its small hands against the barrier. "You're just lonely, aren't you?" she said softly. "How long has he been in isolation?" "Since the third return," Sarah admitted. The other animals seemed distressed by his presence. Isolation stress can manifest in numerous ways, especially in intelligent species, Elena said, standing. "I'd like to adopt him. I understand the risks, and I'm prepared for the challenges." Sarah felt a familiar pang of guilt mixed with hope. "Elena, I have to be completely honest. Every single family has brought him back. There's something about this animal that affects people. I don't want you to go through what they did." "I appreciate your concern, Dr. Chen, but I've worked with traumatized animals my entire career. Sometimes they just need someone willing to understand them rather than fix them." Elena's smile was gentle but determined. "Besides, if I can't handle it, I'll bring him back too. But I'd like to try." The adoption paperwork took 2 hours. Sarah included every warning she could think of, making Elena initial beside each one. As they prepared the transport carrier, the void cat seemed to sense what was happening. It began that humming again, a sound that seemed to resonate in Sarah's bones. "I've never heard him make that noise before," Marcus commented, helping load the carrier into Elena's van. "It's a positive vocalization," Elena said confidently. "Some Earth cats purr when they're content. This might be similar." As Elena drove away, Sarah felt a mixture of hope and dread. She genuinely liked the young veterinarian and hoped this would work out differently than the previous 17 attempts. At the same time, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was sending Elena into something far stranger than a typical difficult adoption. Elena's apartment was a converted veterinary clinic, with living quarters upstairs and examination rooms below. She'd designed it specifically for interspecies care, with adjustable atmospheric controls and specialized equipment for various alien physiologies. If any environment could accommodate a strange creature, this was it. She placed the carrier in her living room and opened the door, then sat cross-legged several feet away. The void cat emerged cautiously, those 6 legs carrying it with surprising grace across the hardwood floor. It explored methodically, sniffing corners and examining furniture with what appeared to be careful deliberation. "Take your time," Elena said quietly. "This is your home now, for as long as you want it to be." The creature paused its exploration to look at her, tilting its head in a gesture remarkably similar to a puzzled Earth cat. Then it returned to its careful inspection of the apartment. Over the next few days, Elena established a routine. The void cat, whom she'd named Cosmos for his star-filled fur, seemed to appreciate predictability. He ate the specialized food Elena had ordered from an interspecies supplier, used the alien-appropriate facilities she'd installed, and gradually began exploring beyond the living room. The first electrical incident happened on day 4. Elena was updating patient files when her computer screen flickered and died. She checked the power connections, ran diagnostics, even called a technician, but the unit appeared undamaged. It simply wouldn't respond. "Well, that's frustrating," she muttered, then noticed Cosmos sitting nearby, golden eyes fixed on the dark screen. "Did you do that?" The void cat blinked slowly, then padded over to brush against her leg before settling in his favorite spot by the window. Elena watched him for a long moment, remembering the warnings from the shelter. But rather than fear or frustration, she felt curiosity. The next morning, her coffee maker refused to function. The day after, the examination room lights began flickering whenever Cosmos was present. Elena documented each incident, noting patterns and triggers. Unlike the previous families, she didn't see these events as malicious or frightening. Instead, she saw them as communication attempts. "You're trying to tell me something, aren't you?" she said one evening, sitting beside Cosmos as he watched the city lights through the window. "But I don't understand your language yet." Cosmos turned to look at her, those golden eyes reflecting depths that seemed to contain entire galaxies. He made that humming sound again, and Elena felt a strange tingling in her mind, like the moment before remembering something important. As weeks passed, Elena began noticing other changes. Her dreams became incredibly vivid, filled with images of distant stars and alien landscapes. She found herself understanding her alien patients with unprecedented clarity, as if she could sense their pain and fear directly rather than inferring from symptoms. The electrical disturbances continued, but Elena started recognizing patterns. Cosmos seemed to interact with electronic devices not to break them, but to somehow communicate through them. Her computer would shut down when she worked too late, the lights would dim when he wanted attention, and the radio would tune itself to specific frequencies that seemed to calm him. "You're not just an animal, are you?" Elena said one night, watching Cosmos manipulate the apartment's environmental controls with careful precision. "You're intelligent, sapient. The question is, what are you, and why are you pretending to be a pet?" Cosmos stopped his adjustments to the air circulation and turned to face her fully. For a moment, Elena felt a presence in her mind, gentle but vast, like standing at the edge of an ocean. Images flashed through her consciousness. Stars being born, civilizations rising and falling, and something hunting through the darkness between galaxies. Then the connection faded, leaving Elena gasping and Cosmos watching her with what she could swear was approval. "Oh," she whispered, understanding beginning to dawn. "You're not from around here at all, are you? You're hiding from something." Over the following days, Elena found herself defending Cosmos to concerned friends and family. Her colleague, Dr. Martinez, noticed her distraction during surgery and suggested she was working too hard. Her sister called daily, worried about the strange energy she felt in Elena's voice. "I'm fine," Elena insisted during one particularly pointed phone call. "Cosmos and I are getting along wonderfully. He's actually helping me with my practice." This wasn't entirely untrue. Elena's success rate with difficult alien patients had improved dramatically since Cosmos's arrival. She seemed to intuitively understand what they needed, often catching medical issues that other veterinarians missed. Her reputation was growing throughout the interspecies community. But late at night, when the city was quiet and Cosmos settled beside her, Elena sensed something vast and patient watching from the darkness beyond the stars. Whatever Cosmos was running from was still out there, searching. And somehow, Elena knew that her simple act of kindness in adopting an unwanted animal had connected her to something far larger than she could possibly imagine. The feeling should have terrified her. Instead, as she fell asleep with Cosmos purring softly beside her, Elena felt a sense of purpose she'd never experienced before. Whatever was coming, whatever Cosmos really was, she was exactly where she needed to be. 3 months after adopting Cosmos, Elena's life had transformed in ways she never expected. Her veterinary practice thrived as word spread about her unprecedented success with difficult cases. Alien species that other clinics couldn't help sought her out, and she found herself understanding their needs with an almost supernatural intuition. The source of this newfound ability became clear during a particularly challenging case. A Rigelian crystal spider had been brought in with what appeared to be neurological damage, but Elena sensed something deeper. As she examined the creature, Cosmos appeared in the doorway of the treatment room, his golden eyes fixed on the patient. Suddenly, Elena's mind filled with images, the spider's home world, its complex social structure, and most importantly, the emotional trauma causing its physical symptoms. The creature had been separated from its colony mind, leaving it psychologically adrift and manifesting as tremors and disorientation. "You're not sick," Elena whispered to the spider, feeling Cosmos's presence like a warm current in her thoughts. "You're grieving." Instead of medication, Elena created an environment that mimicked the spider's home colony, complete with artificial pheromone signals and crystalline structures that resonated at frequencies similar to its species' communication method. Within hours, the spider's tremors stopped. "How did you know?" asked Dr. Martinez when he reviewed the case files. "The neurological scans showed nothing that would suggest emotional trauma as the cause." Elena glanced at Cosmos, who sat quietly in the corner of her office. "Sometimes you have to look beyond the obvious symptoms," she said. Which was true, even if it wasn't the complete truth. As Elena's reputation grew, so did the strange incidents around her apartment. Electronics throughout the building began malfunctioning in patterns that followed Cosmos's movements. Mrs. Patterson from downstairs complained that her television showed alien landscapes instead of her soap operas whenever Elena's cat was on the balcony above. More concerning were the dreams that had begun plaguing Elena's neighbors. Mr. Kim reported nightmares of vast, dark shapes moving between stars. The family with young children on the third floor had started sleeping in one room because the children insisted something was watching them from the darkness outside their windows. Elena knew she should be concerned, but the dreams that visited her were different. Through Cosmos's connection, she experienced visions of incredible beauty, nebulae being born in cosmic wombs, civilizations that spanned entire galaxies, and technologies that made humanity's greatest achievements look like stone tools. "You're showing me your memories, aren't you?" Elena said one evening as she sat beside Cosmos on her balcony, looking up at the star-filled sky. "Your people's memories." Cosmos turned his golden gaze to her, and Elena felt that familiar, gentle pressure in her mind. This time, the images came more clearly. She saw a species that existed as much in thought as in physical form, beings who could traverse the galaxy through pure consciousness while their bodies rested in safe havens. They were explorers, teachers, guardians of knowledge accumulated over millions of years. But something had gone wrong. Elena saw flashes of darkness, a hunger that consumed not just matter but consciousness itself. An ancient enemy that fed on sapient thought, growing stronger with each mind it devoured. Cosmos's people had fought this entity for eons, sacrificing themselves to keep it contained in the void between galaxies. "You're the last one," Elena whispered, understanding flooding through her. "Your people are gone, and you're hiding from this thing that destroyed them." Cosmos's soft humming took on a mournful quality that made Elena's heart ache. She reached out to stroke his midnight blue fur, feeling the weight of cosmic loneliness that he carried. "But why here? Why Earth?" The answer came not in images, but in feelings. Earth was young, unnoticed, far from the major travel routes where the ancient enemy might search. More importantly, humans possessed something unique, the ability to form genuine emotional connections across species barriers. Cosmos had needed someone who could understand him, not just intellectually, but emotionally, someone who could anchor his fading consciousness to hope rather than despair. Elena felt tears streaming down her cheeks as she understood the magnitude of what Cosmos was facing. He was the last repository of his species' knowledge, carrying the memories and wisdom of an entire civilization. But consciousness, no matter how advanced, couldn't survive alone indefinitely. Without connection, without purpose, he would eventually fade into the cosmic background noise. "I'm your anchor," Elena said softly. That's why the adoption worked when all the others failed. I didn't try to change you or fix you. I just tried to understand you." Over the following weeks, their bond deepened. Elena found herself accessing knowledge that should have been impossible for a human to comprehend. She understood the fundamental principles behind faster-than-light communication, could visualize the quantum mechanics that governed consciousness transfer, and began seeing the universe as an interconnected web of thought and energy. This knowledge transformation didn't go unnoticed. Dr. Martinez became suspicious when Elena published a paper on interspecies empathic healing that contained insights decades ahead of current understanding. "Where did you get these ideas, Elena?" he asked during their weekly case review. "Some of these concepts, they're revolutionary." Nobel Prize-winning revolutionary. Elena struggled to find an explanation that wouldn't sound insane. "I've been doing a lot of research," she said weakly. "The more time I spend with different alien species, the more patterns I notice." But Elena's academic colleagues weren't the only ones paying attention. Strange ships had begun appearing at the edge of the solar system, detected by deep space monitoring stations, but officially classified as space debris or equipment malfunctions. Elena, however, knew better. Through Cosmos's memories, she recognized the energy signatures of the ancient enemy's scouts. "They've found you," Elena said one night, watching the news report another meteor shower that displayed decidedly non-meteoric movement patterns. "How long before they get here?" Cosmos's response filled her mind with urgency and determination. The enemy moved slowly through normal space, preferring to feed on civilizations gradually rather than risk detection. But once they identified a target, they were relentless. Elena and Cosmos had perhaps 6 months before the harvesting ships arrived in force. "What can we do?" Elena asked, though part of her already knew the answer. The solution Cosmos proposed was both elegant and terrifying. Elena's unique bond with him had created something unprecedented, a human-alien consciousness hybrid that could access his people's knowledge while remaining grounded in human emotion and creativity. If they could find a way to share this connection with other humans, they might be able to prepare Earth's defenses, but the process would be dangerous. Elena would have to open her mind completely to Cosmos's vast consciousness, risking her own sanity and identity. Even if she survived, there was no guarantee that other humans could form similar bonds without losing themselves entirely. Elena thought about the families who had returned Cosmos to the shelter, traumatized by brief contact with his alien nature. She remembered the growing electrical disturbances, the nightmares affecting her neighbors, and Dr. Martinez's suspicions about her sudden leaps in knowledge. "People are already afraid," Elena said. "If we try to explain what's coming, they'll panic. And if we try to force these connections..." Cosmos shared her concerns, but also showed her images of what would happen if they did nothing. The ancient enemy didn't simply destroy civilizations, it absorbed them, turning their own knowledge and creativity against other worlds. Humanity's potential for growth, for connection across species barriers, would become just another weapon in the entity's arsenal. Elena spent days wrestling with the decision. She researched everything she could about collective consciousness, about the nature of human empathy, about the neurological basis of the bond she shared with Cosmos. The more she learned, the more she realized that humanity might be uniquely suited for this kind of connection. Unlike Cosmos's people, who existed primarily as pure consciousness, humans were physical beings driven by emotion as much as intellect. This grounded nature might provide the stability needed to maintain individual identity while sharing collective knowledge. The very trait that made humans seem primitive to advanced civilizations, their stubborn individuality, might be exactly what the galaxy needed. The breakthrough came when Elena realized she didn't need to convert all of humanity at once. She just needed to find the right people, Those with natural empathic abilities, those who worked with aliens regularly, those who had already shown they could form connections across species barriers. She began with Dr. Martinez. During their next case consultation, Elena deliberately allowed Cosmos into the examination room while they worked on a particularly difficult patient, a young Andromedan whose crystalline neural structure was slowly fragmenting. "I don't understand the progression," Dr. Martinez said, studying the scans. "The degradation pattern doesn't match any known pathology." Elena felt Cosmos's presence strengthen in her mind as he focused on the patient. Suddenly, she saw the truth. The Andromedan was dying from loneliness. Its crystalline mind was designed to exist within a collective, but it had been exiled for some transgression and was literally thinking itself to death in isolation. Without thinking, Elena reached out and placed her hand on Dr. Martinez's shoulder, letting some of Cosmos's insight flow through the contact. Her colleague's eyes widened as understanding flooded his consciousness. "It's not a disease," Dr. Martinez whispered, staring at the patient with new comprehension. "It's emotional dissonance manifesting as physical degradation." "Exactly," Elena said softly. "And I think I know how to help." The treatment required 3 beings working in harmony. Elena providing the emotional anchor, Dr. Martinez using his medical expertise to support the healing process, and Cosmos serving as a bridge between human and Andromedan consciousness. Together, they created a temporary collective that gave the young Andromedan the connection it needed to stabilize its neural structure. When the session ended, Dr. Martinez sat in stunned silence for several minutes. "Elena," he finally said, his voice shaky, "what just happened? I felt connected to everything. To you, to that creature, to something vast and ancient and—" "Wonderful?" Elena suggested. "Terrifying and wonderful at the same time." Dr. Martinez looked at Cosmos with new respect. "That's not just a pet, is it?" Elena made her decision. Over the next hour, she explained everything. Cosmos's true nature, the approaching threat, and the potential solution that their growing network of connected minds might provide. She shared Cosmos's memories of his lost civilization and the enemy that had consumed them. Dr. Martinez listened without interruption, occasionally asking for clarification, but never expressing disbelief. When Elena finished, he sat quietly for a long time, unconsciously stroking Cosmos's fur as the alien purred softly. "So we're talking about creating a human collective consciousness to fight an ancient cosmic entity that feeds on sapient thought," Dr. Martinez finally said, "and our weapon is a network of veterinarians who've learned to empathically bond with alien species." "I know how it sounds," Elena began. "It sounds like exactly the kind of impossible thing humans would try to pull off," Dr. Martinez said with a grin. "Count me in. Who do we contact first?" 6 months later, Elena stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the darkness between stars with eyes that now saw far more than any human should. Beside her, Cosmos sat with his 6 legs tucked under him, golden eyes reflecting the light of distant suns. Behind them, representatives from 12 species waited in tense silence. The network had grown beyond Elena's wildest expectations. Dr. Martinez had been just the beginning. Through careful selection and patient introduction, they had connected 47 humans across the globe, veterinarians, xenobiologists, empathic healers, and individuals who had shown natural ability to bond with alien consciousness. Each connection had been voluntary and gradual. Elena had learned from the traumatic reactions of Cosmos's previous families, developing a protocol that allowed human minds to slowly adapt to the expanded awareness. Not everyone could handle the full connection, but even partial bonds provided valuable nodes in their growing network. "Status report," Elena said, her voice carrying the authority that had naturally developed as the network's coordinator. Dr. Sarah Chen, the shelter director who had unknowingly started everything, spoke from her position at the sensor array. Her bond with Cosmos remained limited, but she had become their early warning system, somehow able to detect the approaching enemy through the growing disturbances in nearby electronic systems. 17 harvesting ships confirmed, Sarah reported. They're moving more slowly than predicted, but they'll reach Earth's outer defense perimeter in approximately 72 hours. Elena nodded, feeling the collective consciousness of her network processing this information. Through Cosmos's memories, they all understood what a harvesting ship could do. Each vessel contained the consumed consciousness of entire worlds, billions of minds enslaved to serve the ancient enemy's hunger. The Galactic Council's response? Elena asked, though she already knew the answer through the network's shared awareness. Dr. Martinez, now serving as their liaison with interstellar authorities, shook his head. They're evacuating the outer colonies, standard protocol when the Devourers appear. The Council's war fleets are pulling back to defend core worlds. Abandoning Earth, added Commander Reyes from Earth Defense Command. Her connection to the network had made her the most effective military strategist in human history, able to coordinate with alien tactical specialists through pure thought. Elena felt a familiar flash of anger through the network, quickly smoothed away by Cosmos's calming influence. It was a very human emotion, this rage at being abandoned, and it had become one of their greatest strengths. The network's alien contacts had been amazed by humanity's refusal to simply accept defeat. "Let them run," Elena said, her voice carrying the quiet confidence that had infected the entire network. "We'll show them what humans do when cornered." The plan they had developed was audacious even by human standards. Rather than fight the Devourers directly, they would attempt to free the enslaved consciousnesses within the harvesting ships. If successful, they could turn the enemy's greatest weapons against itself. But the plan required a level of coordinated consciousness that had never been attempted by any species. 47 human minds would have to merge completely with Cosmos's vast awareness, then project that combined consciousness across interstellar space to make contact with billions of trapped souls. The risks were enormous. Human minds weren't designed for such strain. Even with Cosmos as an anchor, there was a significant chance that some or all of the network participants would be lost in the attempt. But as the hours counted down to the enemy's arrival, Elena felt no doubt from any of her connected colleagues. "Dr. Rodriguez," came a new voice. Elena turned to see Dr. Vexhai, a Centaurian consciousness researcher who had become one of their most valuable alien allies. "The Council wishes me to remind you that this plan has never been tested. The theoretical models suggest a 90% probability of total network collapse." Elena smiled, feeling the amusement of her human colleagues ripple through their shared consciousness. "Dr. Vexhai, with respect, humans have a long history of accomplishing things that theoretically shouldn't be possible." Through the network, Elena felt Dr. Martinez remembering humanity's first attempts at interstellar travel, deemed impossible by the physics of the time. Commander Reyes recalled the evacuation of New Geneva, when human rescue ships had pulled off an extraction that every tactical computer had said was mathematically unfeasible. "Besides," added Dr. Chen through their mental link, "we're not just human anymore, are we?" It was true. The network had become something unprecedented. A hybrid consciousness that combined human creativity and emotional resilience with Cosmos's ancient knowledge and psychic abilities. They were no longer purely human, but they hadn't lost their humanity either. Instead, they had become something new. As the enemy ships entered the solar system, Elena and her team made their final preparations. The network participants were distributed across Earth's surface, each connected to specialized equipment that would amplify their psychic reach. Cosmos had taken his position at the center of the array, his small form somehow containing enough power to bridge consciousness across the void. "All stations report ready," Commander Reyes announced. "Enemy vessels are decelerating toward Earth. We have perhaps 6 hours before they reach optimal harvesting range." Elena felt the network's collective breath. 47 humans and 1 ancient alien preparing to attempt the impossible. Through Cosmos's memories, she could see the Devourer's ships, massive constructs of dark metal and twisted flesh, powered by the screams of consumed worlds. "Remember," Elena said, her voice reaching every member of the network simultaneously. "We're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to free them. Every mind they've captured was once someone's family, someone's hope for the future. They deserve better than eternal slavery." The network began its deep synchronization, human consciousness blending with alien awareness in patterns that had never existed before. Elena felt her individual identity becoming part of something vast and beautiful, while simultaneously remaining distinctly herself. It was like being a single instrument in a cosmic symphony, contributing her unique voice while harmonizing with the whole. As their combined consciousness reached out across space, Elena felt the enemy's response. The Devourers had noticed their approach, vast alien intellects turning their attention toward the impossible signal coming from the small blue world. Contact with the first harvesting ship was like touching molten metal. Elena gasped as the network encountered billions of trapped minds, each one screaming in eternal anguish. But beneath the pain, she sensed something the Devourers hadn't expected. Hope. "They remember," Elena whispered, her voice carrying across all 47 human minds. "The captured souls still remember who they were. They haven't been completely consumed." Through Cosmos's ancient knowledge, the network began speaking to the trapped consciousnesses in languages that predated human civilization. Not words, but pure concepts: freedom, memory, the right to choose one's own fate. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Billions of voices began calling back, sharing their names, their worlds, their desperate desire for liberation. The network strained under the psychic pressure, but Elena felt her human colleagues' stubborn refusal to give up, strengthening the connection. "We hear you," the network called out in unison. "We remember you. You are not forgotten." What happened next would be studied by xenopsychologists for centuries to come. The captured minds within the harvesting ship began to remember not just their individual identities, but their connections to each other. Family bonds, friendships, love relationships that the Devourers had tried to sever began reasserting themselves. The first ship's control systems began failing as the enslaved consciousnesses refused to cooperate with their captors. Warning signals flashed across the vessel's organic neural networks as billions of minds simultaneously chose rebellion over continued servitude. But the network's success came with a terrible cost. Dr. Patterson, one of their newer members, screamed as her consciousness was pulled too deeply into the alien ship's collective. Elena felt the woman's mind beginning to fragment under the psychic strain. "Hold her," Elena commanded, feeling the network's combined will focus on their endangered colleague. Human stubbornness became a literal lifeline as 46 minds refused to let Dr. Patterson fall into the void. Commander Reyes, drawing on her military training, created a psychic barrier around Patterson's consciousness, while Dr. Martinez used his medical knowledge to guide her mind back to stability. It was improvisation on a cosmic scale, humans adapting and overcoming in ways that no theoretical model could have predicted. They saved Patterson, but the effort had weakened their connection to the enemy ships. Elena felt the Devourers beginning to adapt, implementing countermeasures to prevent further liberation attempts. "They're learning too fast," Dr. Chen reported, monitoring the enemy's response patterns. Each ship we contact will be harder to affect than the last. Elena felt Cosmos's ancient sorrow mixing with her own determination. His people had faced this same problem eons ago, the Devourer's ability to adapt to any attack, to learn from each encounter and become stronger. But humans had one advantage that Cosmos's purely intellectual species had lacked: emotional unpredictability. "We don't fight them on their terms," Elena said, feeling a wild plan forming in her mind. "We don't try to be logical or systematic. We be human." Instead of targeting the ships one by one, the network scattered its attention randomly across the entire enemy fleet. Elena reached out to a ship at the formation's edge while Dr. Martinez contacted its command vessel. Commander Reyes focused on 3 ships simultaneously, while Dr. Chen attempted to connect with the enslaved consciousnesses of creatures the Devourers had captured centuries ago. The chaotic approach should have been disastrous. By all logical analysis, it wasted their limited psychic energy and made them vulnerable to counterattack. But the Devourers had spent eons preparing for rational, systematic opponents. They had no defense against pure human chaos. Across 17 harvesting ships, enslaved minds began remembering freedom, not in organized waves, but in random bursts of rebellion that the Devourers couldn't predict or counter. Some ships lost propulsion as their organic computers refused to calculate navigation. Others found their weapons turning on each other as captured warrior consciousnesses reclaimed their ability to choose their targets. The enemy fleet began to disintegrate, not from external attack, but from internal revolution. Billions of liberated minds turned their collective will against their captors, and the ancient entities that had terrorized the galaxy for eons found themselves facing something they had never encountered: the possibility of their own extinction. Elena felt the moment when the tide turned. Through the network's expanded awareness, she sensed the lead Devourer's consciousness for the first time. It was vast, ancient, and for the first time in millions of years, afraid. The entity tried to communicate, offering bargains, threats, promises of shared power. But Elena and her network had touched the minds of its victims. They had felt the anguish of consumed worlds, the despair of enslaved civilizations. "No," Elena said, speaking for all humanity, all the liberated minds, and for Cosmos's lost people. "Your time is over." The final assault wasn't violent. It was simply the collective will of free minds choosing to exist without fear. One by one, the Devourers found themselves unable to maintain their parasitic grip on consciousness itself. The fundamental force that had sustained them for eons simply stopped working. As the enemy fleet dissolved into cosmic dust, Elena felt the network beginning to separate back into individual minds. But something had changed forever. The connections they had forged would never completely fade, and the knowledge they had shared would transform both human and alien understanding of consciousness itself. Cosmos settled beside Elena on the observation deck, his soft purring carrying undertones of content that she had never heard before. Through their bond, she felt his amazement at what they had accomplished. In trying to save one small world, they had liberated billions of enslaved souls and ended a threat that had plagued the galaxy for millennia. "Dr. Rodriguez," Dr. Vexhi's voice carried wonder and respect. "The Council wishes to formally apologize for doubting your species. This outcome, it defies all our models of possibility." Elena smiled, reaching down to stroke Cosmos's midnight blue fur. "Doctor, you might want to update your models. Humans have a tendency to do the impossible when someone they care about is in danger." As news of the victory spread across the galaxy, Elena reflected on the strange chain of events that had led to this moment. It had all started with a simple act of compassion, choosing to adopt an unwanted animal that others found disturbing. But perhaps that was the most human thing of all. In a universe full of advanced civilizations and cosmic threats, sometimes the greatest victories came not from superior technology or ancient wisdom, but from the simple willingness to offer kindness to something different, frightening, and alone. Years later, when xenosociologists studied the Battle of Saul, they would focus on the technical aspects of consciousness networking and psychic warfare. But Elena knew the real lesson was much simpler. Compassion was not weakness. Sometimes it was the strongest force in the universe.